The disappearance of the Sodder children is one of the most mysterious and unsettling cases in American history. It occurred on Christmas Eve 1945 in Fayetteville, West Virginia, when a fire destroyed the home of George and Jennie Sodder. The couple had 10 children, and 5 of them, Maurice 14, Martha 12, Louis 9, Jennie 8, and Betty 5, were in the house at the time of the fire. George and Jennie, along with 4 of their children, managed to escape, but the 5 others, who were sleeping upstairs, vanished without a trace. The fire began around 1 a.m., quickly consuming the house. However, when the fire was extinguished, there were no remains of the children to be found in the wreckage. Firefighters and investigators initially suggested that the children must have perished in the blaze, but there was no sign of their bodies, which was highly unusual. If the children had died in the fire, it was expected that at least some of their remains would have been found, but this was not the case. This discrepancy led to a growing suspicion that the children might have survived the fire and were somehow abducted. Several aspects of the case raised questions about the fire's origin and the possibility of foul play. For example, the fire appeared to behave in an unusual manner. Although the house was made largely of wood, the fire seemed to have burned more quickly than expected, and investigators found that the flames had not spread evenly through the building. Some experts pointed out that the fire seemed to have been deliberately set, rather than occurring naturally. Another significant detail was the absence of the family's ladder, which was typically kept outside by the house. The ladder was discovered some distance from its usual location, leading some to believe that it had been moved deliberately to prevent the children from escaping. Moreover, the family's phone lines had been cut off earlier in the evening, preventing George from calling for help when the fire broke out. A phone repairman had previously warned him that the lines were prone to frequent damage, and some people speculated that this was no coincidence and might have been part of a larger plot. In the days following the fire, several witnesses came forward with information that seemed to suggest the possibility of a kidnapping. Some reported seeing strange vehicles near the house on the night of the fire. One theory was that the children had been abducted, either to be held for ransom or to be sold. George Sodder, a strong-willed man with a history of making enemies in the community, was known to have had disputes with local businessmen and members of the Italian-American community, some of whom were reportedly connected to organized crime. It was speculated that these enemies might have orchestrated the fire as a means of settling scores or intimidating him. Despite the tragic loss, George and Jennie Sodder never gave up hope that their children might still be alive. They launched a public campaign to find them, offering a reward for any information that could help solve the case. In 1950, they received a tip that led them to a photo of a young man in Florida who looked remarkably like one of their missing children. The Sodders traveled to Florida to investigate, but their search turned up no answers. Over the years, they continued to receive other tips, but none led to a breakthrough. The Sodder family's search for their children became a public obsession, with newspapers across the country following their efforts. They even put up a billboard along a major highway featuring photographs of the missing children, and the case was discussed widely in the media. But despite the attention and the numerous theories that emerged, no definitive explanation for the disappearance of the Sodder children has ever been found. In the years following the fire, the Sodders remained convinced that their children were still alive, and they continued to search for them, but they never found closure. The case remains an enduring mystery, with many questions left unanswered. Theories about what happened to the children range from abduction to foul play to the possibility that the children simply ran away from the fire. Some people believe that the fire may have been deliberately set by someone with a grudge against the family, while others think it might have been an accidental fire that was somehow misinterpreted. Regardless of the cause, the fate of the 5 Sodder children remains one of the most baffling and tragic unsolved mysteries in American history.